everybody. I think I just go ahead and jump in. Yeah, thank you all for coming. My name is Sean Humphrey, and I am an associate professor of economics at the University of Mary Washington in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and I am also the founder of Imagine You. So yeah, today what I want to talk to you about is my Better Changemaker curriculum. And so I guess feel free at any time to throw some questions out into the chat stream, and I can get back to take a look at those. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and get started. I know we only have a half an hour, so I'm going to try to make sure we have enough time for discussion and things like that. All right, so my motivation for the Better Changemaker curriculum is just a matter of making the Changemaker space more accessible and inclusive. This is an internal, this is from the Stanford Social Innovation Review, fall 2016. This was an internal sort of investigation, I guess you want to call it that, by Ashoka itself, where it found that 200 plus of its fellows come from only 4 cities, like New York City, Boston, DC, and San Fran, and have similar demographic profiles. Now, I don't want to push it too far, but I know wonderful people from all 4 of those cities. I have some great friends there, and I'm assuming that when they have similar demographic profiles, I'm assuming they're meaning white, heterosexual American males with an S on their chest flying into other communities trying to save them, because that's sort of what I did. Anyway, I do not live in one of those 4 cities. I guess I live about an hour south. But for me, it's sort of like I find that I'm from a small town in Ohio, the most southwestern corner of Ohio. My people are part of the Appalachian diaspora, and I have sort of felt like an outsider sometimes, even with all this white heteronormative stuff I got going on, when I'm part of this community. And I feel like just in terms of just like the worldviews, the values, the theories of change, we just sort of need to make it more diverse, just in the sense that, yeah, we need, in order to move from this word idea of being from just 4 cities to everyone a changemaker, the curriculum is sort of inspired by that transition. Indeed, my work is focusing primarily on working with social innovators from small towns and rural communities. But in general, so for me, the key thing here is, we have a diversity of problems in this world. We need a more diverse set of problem solvers. And so the question is, well, how do we go about trying to accomplish that? How do we get to a point where we can have a more diverse set of problem solvers? And for me, it comes down to how about we build a curriculum that is more inclusive and more accessible. And for me, the Better Changemaker curriculum is a curriculum that's highlighting things that are traditionally overlooked, I feel like, in the Changemaker space, at least my participation in this space since I guess I started getting going about 2007. So I'm looking here at, I'm focusing a lot on humility, relational collateral, cultural competence, and things that are traditionally part of a curriculum that you would see. They're still included, such as the ability to put forward a value proposition proposal, business modeling, strategic thinking, Scrum, Agile. I mean, these things are all still part of the curriculum. However, it's not that they're necessarily demoted, but they are accompanied by things such as, how do you go about becoming authentic? How do you become vulnerable? How do you listen deeply? And how do you actually hear what's being said by those you're actually participating or engaging in work on? These are things that I think are overlooked. And in many ways, I want to highlight those things so that we can, make it more accessible to people who may not have the skills such as business modeling right away. Okay, so before we go ahead and get into the curriculum, here's my working understanding of a better changemaker. So a better changemaker is a values-based, relationship-centered problem solver who acts upon their agency to change the world. They are highly attuned to the possible inadequacies of their efforts, sensitive to their role and place in the process of social change, and know that sustainable social change takes a diverse, intergenerational coalition of human beings committed to building a more just and livable world. So that's my working definition of a better changemaker. I say working because it's always been in the process. It's a living sort of understanding, and it's sort of part of my motivation for presenting here today was to sort of to bring more voices into sort of like a discussion about, well, what is a better changemaker, and what parts of the curriculum do I need to include and add or missing or overlooking, because given my background, there's certain things I simply cannot see. Okay, so in general, so what we're going to see here is that The curriculum itself is it's composed of a mix of tasks to be completed by changemakers. I work with undergraduates, so it's usually who I focus on. Skills for them to be skills that they need to develop, and mindsets that they need to master. So what I've done is I've developed a taxonomy of these tasks, skills, and mindsets, and I've sorted them into 6 categories: agency, solidarity, integrity, confidence, humility, critical consciousness, and self-ownership. Now, instead, like I said before, instead of given our limited time today, instead of reviewing all 6 of these categories, which would be extensive and exhaustive and take all of our time, I decided that I'm just going to focus on one. And hopefully through focusing on one aspect of the curriculum, I can pique your interest so that, post Ashoka U, we can sort of engage in a deeper conversation about, the curriculum itself and my definition of a better understander, a better change maker, and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to focus on the self-ownership aspect of the curriculum. One reason I'm focusing on self-ownership is that it's something that, is traditionally not taught in an MBA program or a college a business program where you're working with social entrepreneurship or social innovation. However, I believe individually personally that self-possession is one of the most important characteristics of a decent, honest, just very effective change maker. And so let's go ahead. I'm going to just walk you through the self-ownership aspect of the curriculum. There will be an overview. I'll review the tasks to be completed. I'll review the skills that need to be developed, and then also the mindset that needs to be mastered. So let's go ahead and look at the overview here. So as far as self-ownership, we humans are largely at the mercy of what we do not know about ourselves. And since the surest way to change the world is to change oneself, we go on an inner journey to meet our whispering fears and insecurities. By meeting them, we meet ourselves. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the tasks involved. These are the tasks that should be completed. So, one of these tasks are asking big questions of the universe, such as why am I here? Why is there good and bad? What's next after I end? I want to just remind you, I'm in the econ department, so these aren't things I usually hear talking about in economics class, but these are things that my students and I talk about all the time. Critically reflecting upon the human constructs you have internalized, measuring the depth of your submersion into the dominant consumerist culture, questioning your past, reconsidering your upbringing, exploring your wounds, and critically reflecting upon the story of you. So these are tasks that students are asked to complete. Now let's go ahead and turn our attention to some of the skills that need to be developed. So here we're dealing with issues regarding self-reflection, self-awareness. How do you actually manifest radical authenticity? Seeing the world as both and instead of either or. So we know the world is extremely complex, and it's not an either or world. The world is full of paradoxes. The world is full of tensions, and the idea is working with students to develop their skills at being able to situate themselves in these tensions and live within this both and sort of world, this sort of mindset in some ways. Okay. Let's go ahead and turn our attention to the mindset. Okay, this is the self-ownership mindset, and yes, I did totally just steal this from George Lucas, so I apologize, and I say thank you to George Lucas and the Star Wars universe. So the mindset that I work with my students to develop is what's called the Padawan learner mindset. Once again, I hijacked this from Star Wars. So you descend into the deepest, darkest, dampest caverns of your interior to meet your Vader. The place where your fears erode your confidence, your self-doubt dissipates your voice, and your insecurities have you retreating into an I know, I'm right, me first, I want, give me mine, take, self-centered world of isolation. It's by stepping into and through the darkness that you claim your kyber crystal. So for me, I sort of draw upon popular culture on more than one occasion, just so I can sort of give my students access to these ideas, because as I'm going on 50 right now, and it's taken me a long time for me to access these ideas, and I want to see if I can use pop culture to sort of help them get there a little quicker than I did. Okay, so that is sort of going over the sort of the overview of self-ownership, the tasks to be completed, the skills to be developed, and the mindset to be mastered. Now, what I want to do next is I want to go through an activity with you, and I know I guess I didn't think too far ahead that I would assume this platform would be more like Zoom, so I would see you. And I guess I probably should have thought about that. But I'm going to go through an activity, and if you can't, and I'd be great if you can throw some comments out in the chat stream, whatever it is. And if you want to, so what I need for you right now is to get a piece of paper and a pen or pencil. That's it. All right. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to grab a piece of paper and a pen. And yeah, I'm checking over here and the people who are showing up in the chat stream. And I hope to God that someone's listening, because I haven't heard anyone. How about this? I always ask my students so I don't feel like I'm totally alone just sitting there talking to myself. But if someone can throw some kind of, where is the chat, shoot me a chat or something like that, that would be awesome, just because for some reason I'm getting this sneaking suspicion, insecurity cropping up inside me saying that I'm speaking to myself. But anyway, so let's go on into the activity. So this activity is called Doodle Your Demons. So this is something I've been doing with my students for years. And so once again, you'll need one blank sheet of paper and you'll need a pen or pencil. And what I'm going to do is you're actually going to, this piece of paper, you're going to work with it in 3 sections. You don't need to divide it into 3 sections, but just in your mind. And thank you, Heather and Jennifer. So yeah, thank you so much for saying that. And I feel much better now because my son's in the other room right behind me taking school, and he was probably checking whether or not I'm just talking to myself or not. So anyway, thank you so much. All right, so coming back to the activity. So a sheet of paper and a pen or pencil, you're going to think about it in terms of 3 sections, all right? So what we're going to do here is on the left-hand side of this piece of paper, what I want you to do is I want you to doodle, don't start yet, and I'll tell you when to start, doodle who you are right now in this moment, in your context, in your comfort zone. And when we actually do the activity, I'm only going to give you a minute to do this 3 times, so it's going to be a bit quick, but you just want to harness your initial sort of images and thoughts and things like that. So on the left-hand side, you're going to doodle, you're going to draw a doodle really quickly of who you are right now in this moment, in this context. On the right-hand side of this piece of paper, you're going to doodle, basically, you're going to draw a doodle of who you're born to be. If you if I give you just a few moments just to think about, if you had to draw, I say, I'm like, Jennifer, draw a doodle of who you were born to be. It's what's your spark look like and things like that. And you're going to do that on the right-hand side. So on the left-hand side, you have, who you are right now in this moment, in this context, in your comfort zone. On the right-hand side, you basically are going to draw a doodle of your spark, who you're born to be, how you imagine yourself to be when you're fully free and unfettered. And in the middle, what we're going to do is we're going to doodle what's called our fearscape. So this is going to be all the obstacles in your mind that hold you back, because you know that who you are right now, you want to move to what you're born to be. You want to move and claim your spark, but you also know we all have these insecurities and these fears. And so what do you want to do? We're going to draw that fearscape out. All right. And you can draw it any way you imagine it. It could be a demon. It could be a desert. It could be mountaintops. It could be a briar patch, whatever it is, whatever comes to your mind. All right. So I'm going to show you my sort of doodle your demon sort of thing. And then what I'm going to do is we'll go through and I'll walk you through doing yours as well. All right. So so this is my doodle your demon. So on the left-hand side, I have who I am right now in my comfort zone. I have my armor on. It's like my, and then on the right-hand side, this is who I imagine myself to be when I'm fully free. This is my spark. And in the middle, I have my demon. I drew it as just one demon, but you're free to draw your fearscape any way you want to. All right. So let's go ahead and do that now together. So once again, grab a piece of paper and a pen. And we're going to start on the left-hand side first, all right? I'm going to give you 1 minute, all right? So start right now on the left-hand side. You get 1 minute to draw a doodle of who you are right now in this moment, in your context, in your comfort zone. All right, go ahead. 1 minute. You have 30 seconds. Don't think too hard. Just go ahead and doodle. All right, 10 seconds. Okay, stop. Now let's go to the right-hand side of your paper. Now on the right-hand side, once again, you're going to draw a doodle of who you're born to be, who your spark is, things like that. Let's go ahead and start. 1 minute. You have 30 seconds. Fifteen seconds. All right, stop. Now we'll do 1 minute when you are actually your fearscape. Let's go ahead and start. Once again, you want to draw the obstacles, anything that's sort of holding you back from being who you were supposed to be, because we know we have to go through that. So start. You got 1 minute. You have 30 seconds. Five seconds. All right, let's go ahead and stop then. Now, at this point, what we would do in my classes is that, we have what are called quicker rules. I went to Earlham College, and we have quicker rules for all things, which is bottom line is that you sit in silence. If someone wants to communicate, they definitely can communicate. They're under no one's under any obligation to actually communicate at all. So if it's something you want to share, you definitely can share. But what we do is we sort of have a short discussion about this, throw out some questions such as, well, how did you imagine the struggle against your demons? Was it a battle, or was it just a conversation where you need to bring the whole family together and say, hey, these are the rules of engagement for us? Because a battle metaphor, those things. It's always best to use that metaphor to explain our existence. So it has limitations. So we can also talk about, other questions are like, okay, what moments of embarrassment, if any at all, did your sort of like demons, or when you're walking or drawing your fearscape, did you have to relive? What, if anything, was being said to you by those who populated your fearscape? So what was your inner monologue? What was going on? So once again, in the context of a classroom, these conversations, once again, are purely voluntary. No one's expected to share their work or even to participate. But they can be just sort of like very enlivening in terms of like getting us to, as educator and students, to become closer in terms of trusting one another and being vulnerable with one another, and things like that. So now, having said that, what I want to do is I'm going to wrap up my part of the discussion. I just thank you so much for being here. And I guess, so I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat again the link to the overall. So this is the curriculum altogether. Once again, it's made of 6 different components. And I just wanted to sort of step back and see whether or not there are any questions or comments that maybe I can address. Looks like we have 10 minutes left over. And I'll look for those in the comment stream. And feel free to comment on any aspect, whether it was the activity or parts of the self-ownership curriculum, or even go into take a look at the link and see if there's any aspect of the curriculum that you would like to talk about. And maybe while we're waiting for that, I'll pull up the actual curriculum itself. Okay. Oh, so Jennifer asks, how can I talk about how my curriculum has been received by other faculty at your institution? Honestly, I've tried. I started sharing it only recently with some of my colleagues in the Center for Community Engagement. Um, but honestly, when I started, it was actually, I started working with it last January, and then I started going to our social justice center. We have and I was bringing it along, but then COVID hit, and honestly, I have not been back on campus in that long, and it really disrupted the entire conversation. So I'm only now starting to get back into that conversation with people in my Center for Community Engagement. But I will say that I haven't had a chance to get. I have a few friends who were in the social innovation space, and I've gotten positive responses from them. But most of them are not faculty members. Most of them run either gap year programs or things like that. Is there? So Jennifer, can you tell me like how was it received by you? If you're not to put you on the spot or anything, how did you? What were some of your feelings that came up when you maybe from what you've seen so far? So there's a great question from Heather regarding self-selecting into my classes and also the curriculum and things like that. Um, I would say that so this curriculum is I would say it has not been public for, it's actually been something I've been building for over a decade. So I've been working with students in the social entrepreneurship space for over a decade now. And it's in through, we started our work back in Honduras, and we ran our own microfinance institution program. And it was realizing what I needed to do to prepare my students to do that kind of work. That's slowly evolved into this curriculum. It took 10 years sort of testing different things. And so what I found is that I do a lot of it is a lot of self-selection, because even when people are or do express interest in my courses, I introduce them to my alumni, introduce them to my current students, and my current students and my alumni bring them fully up to speed about what is expected. Like they were like, hey, we had this doodle you demon sort of thing, he's going to ask you to draw and talk about things like that. So I think in many ways students come in with an understanding like, yeah, they will have to do things that are non-traditional, and they may find a bit challenging in the context. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of self-selection, and then along the way there was a lot of encouragement from me with them. And I have basically a community of former students that become they do red teaming with me, in the sense that they come in, they look at my current students' projects, and I try to facilitate as much communication between my alumni and my current students, so that the trust between my current students and myself can be hastened, so that they know that they can trust me when we're having conversations like that. But thank you, Jennifer. That's a great question. Jennifer came back. Thank you, Jennifer, for that great feedback. Yeah, I think it's a pretty unique curriculum in terms of, yeah, I would say that also I wouldn't say it's something that my students and I co-created over years. So it wasn't like it was just me sitting back and writing this out. This is anchored in experience and anchored with multiple conversations with many students, at least 70 to 80 students over the past 10 years, thinking about and reflecting upon sort of like our journey together through sort of like this sort of social innovation space. So yeah, I wouldn't take solo authorship of this. I see this more as a co-creation and of my work with my students over the years. Okay, Anna has a question about systems thinking, and so I think I approach systems thinking a little differently than most people think about systems thinking. I was trained by Douglas North, who he was a co-founder of a school of economics called New Institutional Economics. And the way that he thinks about the process of economic development and the movement out of poverty is that he has created a overall framework that brings together economics, history, political science, anthropology, and sociology. And so when I think about systems thinking, I think in terms of that kind of system. And I'm actually now dipping my toe into sort of like what is the traditional understanding of systems thinking. But my students, the way I would sort of like many ways vet my students was that they would take my course where I taught them new institutional economics. And it was through watching them engage that subject matter that I would slowly invite them into sort of like my more in-depth courses where we're doing the kind of work that we're doing in the curriculum here. So for my system, we see it in a systems way that way, but I think it may be different than how you do, Anna. But if you are interested, my professor's name was Douglas C. North. And the book is titled Institutions, Institutional Change and Economic Performance. But great question. Thank you so much for that question, Anna. And any resources you have for me for system thinking, please pass along. Thank you, Heather, for the feedback. And thank you for, I'm doing my best. I have, and this goes for everybody, not just Heather. I've designed, I think I've created at least about 10 to 15 different types of exercises that I do with my students and move them. So for example, one is like what's called a cemetery walk. Another is called a life chart. And I will, if you're interested, I can reach out to me and I can make those activities available to you. Each of them have been pivotal and sort of like, once again, I think for me, it came down to building a trusting, I would say loving relationship between myself and my students. I know we're not allowed to talk about love so much for our students, got to be careful about it. And I know as economists, it's not something you're usually hear. But over years, it sort of turned into this thing where we're just sort of like, we trust one another. And it's this process of sort of like mutuality and mutual adjustment of teaching one another side by side, which is really something awesome. And yeah, it's one of the best things about being a teacher I found out. All right. So great question. How do you assess self-ownership in a course? Oh, I would say right now, as far as the curriculum is concerned, when it comes to actually assessing this curriculum, I would say that it's weak. Just to be straight up honest with you. I have not given much thought for assessment yet, simply because I've just been building out the curriculum now. I think the next step is to sort of build out a system by which you actually could assess these things. And in terms of self-possession, I would say that for me, when my students and I were in the community with which we were working, and they're launching or orchestrating their own program, whether or not they can handle the pressure of having to iterate on the fly in front of our clients and the community members and how to handle that stress, if they've flowed through that, I consider that self-possession myself. But is there a way for me to create a rubric with a number attached to that? Not yet. I haven't been able to do anything like that. But anyone who's interested in creating an assessment, it's not something that I'm very strong at doing. But yeah, but the assessment part needs work. Okay, we have about 29 seconds. I just want to thank you all so much for showing up and being here and listening. And feel free to look at the website. And follow up. I will follow with you. I have a number of resources, and oh, Cara, that's a tough one. 8 seconds. Can we meet up after? Let's try to talk afterwards, after the session. But yeah, thank you all for being here. I'm out of time. See you guys. Bye bye.